There's no truer saying than we're our own worst enemies. And something from the moment you take life into this beautiful planet, there's something we need to account for, and that's our humanness. I'm watching the Angels Yankees game, and watching these professionals who've been practicing baseball for the majority of their lives, and they make the dumbest mistakes, the simplest errors, and I'm thinking, man, these are professionals. This is what they do, and yet they screw up all the time. We don't give ourselves that space, and the moment you inhabit a human body, the moment you become a human being, you're gonna screw up. And it's the human factor. That's it. The moment you're a human being, you're gonna screw up, and you're probably gonna screw up quite a bit. And the beneficial thing is to learn from your screw-ups, but even then, we probably, many of us don't pass that test. And really, just to cut ourselves a little bit of slack. I think of it like this. What's the best way if you were to take a small child and you wanted to motivate them, you wanted to make them feel good about themselves, you wanted them to be happy, be joyous? What's the best way to do that? Is to criticize them, ridicule them, beat them up for the mistakes they make, or praise the things that they do right. There's this dog training technique that I was watching, where they don't even punish the dog; they just reward the dog when it does. It was this unruly dog, and it wouldn't sit. And so instead of saying no, sit, no, sit, no, all the owner did had little treats, and he would just stand and would ignore all the bad behavior. And the moment the dog sat or came close to sitting, would give it a treat. The transformation in the dog's behavior, this unruly dog that nobody wanted, within a couple weeks was profound, just based on the feedback that the owner gave the dog. And if you look at little children, the same way. They thrive under positive feedback. Now, I'm not saying, we should never, sometimes it's not deserved, and we shouldn't be, honest and strict with children. But there's a difference between words that benefit and kind of provide the sunlight for the child, and the ones that are just like a hammer and beat the child down. And, this is common sense. You just, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense. And yet, how do we treat ourselves? We treat ourselves with the hammer. And we're always noticing what we don't do, the mistakes we made. And maybe that's 10, 20, 30% of the time. But we don't notice, or we don't spotlight all the things we do right. And we're constantly doing things right. And it's such the same energy. I worked for a boss, and he was such a hard ass and critic. He would always find the fault. I mean, he was really good. He really knew what he was doing, but he was always able, this you did wrong, that you did wrong. And it just sucked the energy out of the whole workplace. People would just be demotivated, even though what he was saying, there was truth to it. And in management, I find you get so much more out of people by noticing what they do right. Well, okay, this is, how to win friends and influence people. And yet we don't apply that to ourselves. So it's now being conscious of the way we speak to ourselves. And it's not saying, okay, I'm going to be positive, I'm only going to notice the nice things. That's not what I'm saying, because that negative critic is so ingrained in us. What I'm saying is, let's create a little space and observe that inner dialogue that's going within us, that inner critic. and not react to it. Oh, okay. There it goes again. I mean, it got to the point with my boss, I was just like, okay, that's who he is. First I got sucked into it, felt bad about it, and then I just went, oh, okay. He's just being who he is. And there he goes again. And then you create this space where that negative energy doesn't contaminate you. But that is the best way to motivate and inspire yourself, is to notice the things you do right. So if you're trying a new diet, diets don't work, but if let's say you're changing your lifestyle and you're trying to eat healthier, and what do? We say, okay, I'm not going to eat chocolate cake, I'm not going to eat potato chips and blah, blah, blah. And then the next week we eat, we have a bag of potato chips. I can't believe it. Why did I do that? I can't keep to anything. I'm so undisciplined. Instead of, we don't know, hey, we kept to eating healthy for a week. Or we increased the amount of fruits and vegetables. Whatever. And it's where we shine the light. Where you shine the light, that behavior pattern gets strengthened. And it's really, it's that simple. And it's just now becoming aware. And it's starting small. I think really lasting change starts with small, little, consistent behavior changes. So for one day, you might just notice one thing you did right. Yeah, and then you can continue to beat yourself up about everything else. And then maybe the next week you notice 2 things that you did right per day. And one of the things I try to do is I try to remember breathing. And I really feel so much better when I focus on my breath. And I will forget about it, all day. And I didn't focus on my breath today. How could I? And then the next day, I didn't. And then I started noticing the times I did focus on my breath. And they were short. Maybe they were, per day only 5 minutes. But as I noticed and focused on my breath, that time started increasing versus hitting myself over the head. And then another really effective technique, and this is, again, very basic common knowledge, is imagine the behavior you want that you already have. So if you want, I don't know, I think like Napoleon Hill or, a lot of the old motivational speakers, one of the common phrases they would say is act as if. Act as if you're successful. Act as if you're confident. Act as if you're self-disciplined. And something just really transformed, because we're always saying, I need to change this about myself, and we project ourselves into the future, which doesn't exist. But if we say act as if, we are living in this moment, and we're engaging in that behavior in this moment, in the now. And it's just such a much more powerful technique to say I am versus I'm going to, or I need to. So just that simple shift in language will really have a transformative power in your daily walk. Thanks again, everybody, for all the love, and have a wonderful week.